For most of us, our speaker needs no introduction. Tom Baker has served the fellowship for many years. Tom and I are both outpatient therapists. For several years, we were in the same practice together here in Virginia Beach. I'm grateful that we each are stretched daily by our clients to move more and more towards our own goodness as we encourage our clients towards theirs. Tom's talks inspire us through thoughtful inquiry, poignant stories, and generous humor. Let's give Tom a big fellowship welcome.
Well, thank you. I feel like a football coach. We have a little vodka here. Good, yeah.
How do you handle disappointment? I was expecting vodka. I got water. Well, you've probably experienced this. One of the consequences of being a married person is that you end phone calls with your spouse by saying, "I love you." Ever had that? You do that. Hello, goodbye, I love you. And in fact, all partings with my wife have in them, "I love you." So "I love you" is lodged kind of in my subconscious, which is also to say that this phrase is a bit automatic with me. Thursday was a snow day, as you remember. Everything was closed, and I was calling clients to see if they were going to come in on Friday. So I called about 8 people, and sure enough, almost with 2 or 3 of them, I said at the end of the conversation, "I love you." Boundaries, Tom, boundaries. And I started to think about this and wondered what would happen if the semi-automatic response became an automatic response. So I go around saying, "Goodbye, doctor, I love you." Or "So long, officer, and by the way, I love you." Or "Take care, Miss Jones, I love you." I would immediately become endearing and weird and extremely misunderstood. And what if this condition was highly contagious, so that almost everyone who I encountered caught it from me? They'd be smitten with "I love you." And every time they said goodbye to anybody, they'd say, "I love you." Now, the Course in Miracles says, don't change the world. You heard that. Change your mind about the world. But I wonder if that really wouldn't change the world. Just to do that. The term goodbye actually means God bless. And we've sort of secularized it into so long. But actually it's what it originally meant. So for the past couple of weeks, like you, I've been shut up in the house, rearranging my sock drawer, organizing papers, watching daytime television. There are a lot of cooking shows on daytime television, and there are all these interviews with these young people who are shamelessly self-promoting. They're always saying, "Me, me, me." So I just about had it. I read a couple of books, and then my eyes got tired, and I decided I got to get out of here. I got to go do something. So I looked at what movies were being offered, and I went off to see 50 Shades of Grey. Which I found to be, I know you haven't seen it and won't see it, so you need a report from the front. It was a dressed up depiction of abuse, sexual and otherwise, plain and simple. The hero, Christian Grey, is a good-looking young billionaire who is obsessed with dominating women through sadomasochistic sex. He has an elaborate playroom displaying whips, chains, belts, and handcuffs. And of course, a bed, sort of a cross between a boudoir and a torture chamber. His collaborator is a young girl named Anna in her 20s, who is, of course, in the beginning, a virgin. The film is disturbing to the max, especially in its odd way of depicting sadomasochism as quirky rather than pathological, and Christian Grey as a little disturbed but really hot. All the girls are saying, "Boy, he's so hot." Well, sometimes it takes an extreme example to show us something that's right under our nose. And that is, why do we humans so want to dominate each other? Why do we do it? Given the choice, we often choose power over loving kindness. We choose war over peace, both in the world and in our homes. On the way here, I was behind a truck who had a vanity license plate. It said, "Yes, dear." So were the pants in that family. So we're shocked at 50 Shades of Grey, but we ourselves dominate a lot. Now, how come? I think part of the reason is that from birth almost, we have learned about the dominant God in the Old Testament, or the Hebrew Bible, the Hebrew Scriptures. You could lose your life and your family to that God, and the dominance factor was passed down to how we govern, how and why we wage war, how legal codes work, and finally how marriages and families work. I remember my father ordering us to go to the cemetery and have a picnic where he, leaning on a headstone, spoke with ultimate authority about the world ending with a hydrogen bomb exploding over Fort Knox, Kentucky. What Dad said was true because he was in charge. Somewhere in the back of my mind, I'm still waiting for the big one to drop because my dominating father said so. So is the world always going to be like this? One person in a family, one cop on the force, one country in the world trying to dominate, cause trouble? Well, I would bring good news. I would say absolutely not. It's not going to be this way. Times are changing. We were right back in the 60s and 70s. Times really are changing. It may look like the inmates are running the asylum. And the asylum is the earth. ISIS is beheading people, burning people alive. Congress is hopelessly divided and stymied. And global warming is making chaos of our weather patterns. Yet something else has been happening in our culture all along that works against dominating relationships, and it is the movement towards equality. That movement started in the 60s and 70s. It began with feminism and grew deeper with transactional analysis. You remember that book, I'm Okay, You're Okay? That was a holy book. It finally said, nobody needs to dominate anybody else. By 1980, when I became a Catholic priest, they had marked out the obedience phrase in the marriage rite, where a woman had to be obedient to their husband. It was really cool to open up that book and see it, ink sort of marking out that phrase. Somebody did it kind of on the fly, I think. They didn't have a meeting about it, they just did it. And we never said it. But a new kind of marriage was beginning to happen, one based on equality rather than the dominance of the husband. By 1990, egalitarianism, the equality of all people, was the ruling idea of the day. Just because someone was in power didn't make it true. Nixon had resigned. The bully in school had been challenged, and the spouse and child abuser had been uncovered. A woman is the equal partner in a marriage, and God, look where God is. God's in a completely different place. He's not dropping the hammer on us anymore. Even in fundamentalist churches, they're sort of optimistic. As best as they can. But they're moving in that way. Culture is a hard thing to resist. God has become the role model that we seek to join as co-creators, rather than the celestial dictator that we were forced to obey. And get this, these are statistics. We have less hunger in the world than we ever have had before. Hardly because of Linda and Bill Gates and Melinda. Okay, thank you. We have less war. We have a lot of little wars, but we don't have a big war. Less war. And we have less murder than we've ever had before. Now, we see everything on television, so it seems like it's a lot more. But statistically, it's a lot less. Yeah. And we have more freedom of spiritual thought and practice in the first world than ever before. And I want you just to notice right now how comfortable you are. You've got plenty to wear. We've got the heat on. You've got these lovely chairs to sit in. If you ever go to Bruton Parish in Williamsburg and sit in those pews, my God, there needs to be a chiropractor's office across the street from that church. It's horrible. So we're the most physically comfortable people in the history of the world. You're going to go home, you're going to drink stuff and eat stuff that used to take all day to fix. You fix it in about 15 minutes. It's amazing. So we are breaking through to a level of consciousness in which love is both the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega, the hello and the goodbye. It's coming. It's already here. Now, I had a client last week who I was listening to and talking with, and suddenly she kind of sat up on the couch and said, "Tom, I've been here for 11 minutes and I don't feel any better. Well, I counseled that she have more patience. We had a whole hour. I told her to wait and hope. That's patience. In almost all of my life, and probably yours, we have been expecting the worst of the future. During the nuclear war times, the Cold War, we expected the nuclear winter. Now we expect the burning summer. We expect the seas to turn to a sewer. All of us have a kind of subconscious obsession, and it is to save the world. We're probably the only generation, or there's only several generations, that have ever had that going with them. Isn't that amazing? We keep trying to fix the world, save it, do something about it. As the Course in Miracles says, don't change the world. Change how you see the world. Now here's the change that I would encourage you to make. The world is not a pleasure center. The world is an extreme school, a severe school. And it has extremes in it from which we learn. It can get very hot and it can get very cold. It can be very kind and it can be very mean. It can be very happy and it can be very sad. We learn from extremes. So my idea, and it kind of goes with what Steve said. Steve was just starting to fall asleep. I woke him right up. Steve.
I was gazing at the dog, actually.
All right, yes. I think they're both asleep. But we could be more loving. We could do it. We could make the world a classroom of the extreme. A loving extreme. Where it would be sort of too much. People telling each other that they loved each other. And not be embarrassed. Not go, oh, shucks. And upon saying goodbye, no matter who it was, you'd say, I love you. Now, of course, we don't want to do this too quickly. It could put us on the spot. It could put us on a wonderful, extraordinary, joyful spot. So long. It's been nice being with you. I love you.